What?
We moved from the United States of America to Nice, France, almost a year ago. Can you believe it's almost a year?
It's been a year in France.
Almost.
Almost.
By the time you're seeing this, it probably will be that 1 year.
Yes.
So many people have been contacting us over the year, asking lots of questions. And we thought we would do a little video and sort of catch you up and tell you what it's been like over this 1 year period. Things we found surprising, things we liked, things we didn't like. And so here we go.
I watch you as you drive. Do you know I'm looking? And I can't help but smile. Do you know how much I love you? You put my favorite song on, I put my feet up, and we just sing along. And I can't help but feeling, just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together? If I could stop the time, don't you know that I would? 'Cause I'm just loving.
So it's already been almost a year that we've been living here in Nice, and we survived. We made it. Last night we experienced our first two earthquakes here in Nice. Nothing major. I think the strongest one, I think, was a 4.2 on a Richter scale, and I think the other one was 3.9. So we've survived. In fact, Jeff totally missed one of them because he was standing in the bathroom, going to the bathroom. And apparently, to really feel an earthquake here, to feel that earth move, you need to be sort of sitting on furniture that shifts a little. And I just happened to be sitting on the couch, and the couch moved. So anyway, we survived. A whole lot better than dealing with hurricanes in Florida, I can tell you that. If hopefully we don't have to deal with anything more serious than the earthquakes we experienced last night, we'll be fine. We definitely don't miss those hurricane seasons of constantly watching the weather. So let's talk about some of the things that we've experienced, found surprising since we moved here. For me, one of the most surprising things was literally how many people do not speak English. Like a lot of people, I thought, oh, we'll go to Nice, everybody speaks English there. But the reality is, it's not true. I studied French for 8 years, and while I don't speak perfect French, and I'm far from being fluent, I can pretty much hold my own in most conversations back and forth in person. I'm still concerned about having telephone conversations, but my fear is lessened in this year. Now, if I have to make a phone call, so I make a phone call, and I have managed to actually get what I needed, ask the questions I needed to ask, and get the answers that I needed. So no more concerns there. However, what I've realized is that in the tourist areas, that's where most people speak English. But when you're in your apartment, dealing with day-to-day issues and problems, and even just getting set up, the installer that comes from the internet company, cable company, we had two of them come, two different ones. The first one spoke zero English. Actually, the second one spoke zero English as well, but we were sort of prepared, so it didn't create much of a problem for me. We had a plumber come months ago, no English. We're having some renovations done in our guest room, and we'll show you that after it happens. The guy that came to measure to install the unit that's going to go on the wall, no English at all. And when he would contact us for the appointment, he kept making the mistake of calling Jeff's cell phone instead of mine. And Jeff refuses, for the most part, to pick up his cell phone because he's afraid he won't know what the person's saying and he won't know what to say on the other side. So I've gotten him just literally in the past week or so. If he doesn't see a note next to the phone number, caller ID, if he doesn't see a note that says possible spam, he now will pick up the phone, but most of the time he just hands it to me. So it did come as a surprise once you live here, when you are dealing with day-to-day life and the needs of a resident here in France, and not always going to the tourist areas to go out to eat or to take care of shopping for things you need. We have literally found places where they do not speak any English, and it's fortunate that I speak French. But, you know, here we have a situation. Every time Jeff goes to the doctor, I have to go with him. One of our doctors speaks English, but not real well. Actually, yeah, we've gone to two doctors. One, on his biography or profile on Dr. Lib, it said that English was one of the languages he speaks. The reality is very, very, very little. And if I hadn't gone in with Jeff, well, neither one of them would have any clue what the other one was saying. And we have another doctor who does speak English, but he seems to prefer French. So Jeff has to call me in to sit in on that appointment each time so that I can translate for the two of them. So, I mean, it is, if you're thinking about moving to France, you don't have any French, and you don't have a spouse or a partner that's coming with you that does speak a fair amount of French, before you make the move, I would take some very intensive French class.
Is it true that you don't need to speak French to come here? The problem with that is, when you go to a restaurant or when you go into a store, many of the employees know English because they deal with tourists all the time. But when you're in some place and there are people talking around you in French, if you don't understand like the basic French, you're not going to understand what really is happening around you. So it's a mistake not to learn French before you come here. You can come without knowing any French at all like I did, but it really helps if you have a basic understanding of French so you know what people are saying around you. And when you deal with a person putting your telephone system or cable system into your house, many of the technicians that come to the house don't speak English, so you have to use Google Translate or something. So people that deal with public, yes, everybody pretty much understands English, but the technical people, the workers, it's sort of hit or miss. So it's a wise idea to always know French when you're coming here, and you can practice it when you get here.
So I know everybody's got a burning question. How's Jeff doing with his French classes?
Très bien.
Oh, well, let me tell you. We started with a class with a lovely lady who teaches French classes here in town for very minimal price.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the classes were like way, way, way over Jeff's head. They're great for someone who knows some French, but you really needed to have some basics down before you could sit through her classes.
Yes.
I would have been fine, and I may have picked up some extra vocabulary and learned a few little nuances that I had forgotten from way back. But Jeff needed something much more basic. So I searched and searched and searched, and I could not find a class that would literally start at the beginning with how do you pronounce the letters of the alphabet? How do you conjugate a verb? All of the little basics. So out of frustration, I decided, forget it, I'll do it. I will teach him. Now, I'm certainly not going to teach him with the level of intensity that I learned French, 55 or so years ago in school. However, the first thing he really needed to do is He needs to understand how to pronounce the letters. When you see a word, how to pronounce the word.
Yes.
He needed to understand pronouns like I, you, he, she, they, we. And he needed to understand how to conjugate a verb, basic verbs, things that he needs to know how to conjugate for basic conversation here in French. I think little Bella wants to get down. What, you don't want to stay up here? Okay, goodbye.
So one of the things about living in a city is there are 2 times during the week when the trash bins go out to the street. And Bella and I go out at night. We go out like around 7 o'clock before the garbage man comes, but when all of the treasures are out by the curb. So every once in a while we'll find something. One of the things we found was the chair that Anne is sitting in, as a matter of fact. That came off from the sidewalk in front of our apartment.
But we showed you that in an earlier video. And I
But-
need it to sit on right now.
And the other item was like an easel like you would use in a conference room when you were talking to a big group of people with large paper sheets. And I thought to myself, Anne in the future is going to become my French tutor. So I thought to myself, if I bring that home now, she's going to get a big marker and she's going to have class and she'll be the teacher and I'll be the student. And I was looking forward to her playing the teacher.
So he didn't really bring it home for that reason. But when I decided
Yes, I did.
when I decided that I could not find a very, very basic French class, like, don't take this the wrong way, but I was looking for French class for dummies or French class for little children,
Right.
Maybe, American children,
Right.
like the very, very basics. So when I decided that I would do the class, it was perfect because we had that easel in the guest room.
Right.
So we pulled it out, and so unfortunately I can't get Jeff to do it more than once or twice a week. Initially, when I told him I was going to do the classes, I said we're going to do it 2 days a week for an hour apiece. So for the very first class, we got to just about a half hour, and he said, okay, I have to quit now. I'm tired. I need to go take a nap.
Yes.
I hadn't counted on that. This is why Jeff is not a whole lot further than he was before, but at least we're on the right track. We have figured out that rather than trying to find the class he needs to get basic things that he needs, things like, hello, my name is Jeff. How are you? It's raining. I'm eating. I would like to order. I have. Things, very basic conversations. So we've been learning the verb. Those of you who know French, you know what I'm talking about. We've been learning the word avoir, and we've been learning the verb être. And we're just starting now to make sentences with those things. Now, we haven't had our lesson this week, and it's already Wednesday when we're shooting this. So tomorrow morning will probably be his class for this week. May not get 2 classes in.
Well,
but this is better than him having nothing because we just can't find anything.
Right.
So, and even if he learns one word every few days, that's good. And maybe he'll learn some more phrases so that when he walks into a place, for example, last week we worked on, hello, my name is Jeff. I have a rendezvous. So that if he went to the doctor's office or somebody's office where he had an appointment, he could say, bonjour, je suis Jeff, j'ai un rendezvous. Right?
Oui.
Now you say it.
Hi, my name is Jeff. We have a rendezvous. Oui.
You are so funny. He keeps me laughing.
My biggest surprise coming to Nice was how well the tram and public transportation system works here. So the public transportation system is laid out here, it's really a pedestrian city. It's made to walk around everywhere. A car is actually harder to find a parking spot. So by coming here and not having a car, it's very convenient to get to everything in town walking there. We can go all the way out to IKEA, we can go to the airport, we can go down to the port, anywhere we need to go with the buses and the trams so smoothly. And when they get there's part of the tram that's underground. To get there, they actually have elevators. You don't even have to go down the steps. Or if you don't like the elevator, you can use an escalator to go down. I mean, it's the most modern and the nicest public transportation of any city I've ever been in. One of the things that was a little surprising was it gets a little cooler in the winter than it did in Florida. We were wearing winter jackets and gloves a lot more in February and December, February. And it's on a sunny day, it always feels good to be in the sunshine. But we've had a number of rainy, cold days here. So the climate is a little cooler. And in the summertime, though, like in August, it's just as warm here as it is in Florida. So the climate just has a little more of a winter tint to it. But the benefit of that is you can actually go snow skiing in about an hour drive out of Nice. We did not go skiing this year, but maybe next year we'll go to the Alps and we'll try it out.
I don't think so.
So you have both. You have the Mediterranean Sea, you can have lunch in the sunshine, you can get on a bus and go to the ski resort and ski in the afternoon. And it's always surprising to be walking down the street and see people getting off the trams or the train with a set of snow skis over their shoulder because they've been skiing.
What was totally unexpected, like blew you away?
One totally unexpected thing was that there are public restrooms, but you have to use pay toilets in the public restrooms. So when you're at the mall or when you're in the city parks and you see a public restroom, that means it's a €1 fee to actually go to the bathroom. I never saw pay toilets in the United States, but here in France, in many public functions or public situations, it's a pay toilet situation. It's either €1 or €2. Same thing happened at some of the train stations. You had to have €1 or €2 coins in order to go in and use the public restrooms at the train station. That was a surprise. So 3 years ago, we made this decision to make this jump.
4 years ago.
Okay,
'Cause
don't
we've
listen
been
to
here,
me.
well, we've been here a year now. So 3 years before we moved, we made the decision, and
3
now,
years before we moved, and now 4 years we've been here.
right?
We made this decision to jump to France for the lifestyle. I find living in France to be much more relaxing, much more affordable. And to be honest, we did come from a very expensive part of Florida. We came from Naples, Florida, which was one of the more expensive areas for housing. If you had told me 4 years ago you could live here for less money than you could live in Florida, I would not have thought that was the case. But it truly is the case. And of course, we're saving by not having any cars. We had 2 cars in Florida. And we're living in a little smaller apartment. But to be honest, it's really all we need. So we're quite happy with the jump to the lifestyle here in Europe. And if we need to go somewhere, we just get on a train or a bus and it takes us wherever we want to go. The public transportation is marvelous, really good compared with I never had any kind of city in the United States that had this type of thing. I guess the closest might be New York where they have the subways. But to be honest, the public transportation here is way better than any other city I've ever been in.
Yes. Now, some have asked, what's the most frustrating or stressful thing you've had to deal with since you moved here? And I would say it's the administrative issues. everything takes a long time. For example, we applied to do the exchange of our driver's license. Florida has a reciprocal agreement with France that allows us to exchange our Florida driver's license for French driver's license. Well, first of all, you can't do that until you're here around 90 days, and then you have to submit all of the paperwork. The paperwork had to be translated into French by a France certified translator. But then once you make the application, you get a confirmation saying that you may not hear from them for 8 to 10 months. It's kind of surprising when you get that response. As it is, they started processing our driver's licenses about 5 months after we sent them in. And so we sent ours in at the beginning of June, the first week of June last year. And Jeff got his license by the end of October.
Right.
I didn't get my driver's license until January. And there was a lot of back and forth, requests for additional information. And then it just takes a painfully long time. When we applied to get on the national healthcare system, and we sent all of our documents to CPAM, you have to do that by mail, paper mail. You can't upload it online, so you have to go to the post office. And then it just seems like it takes forever. Now, in that case, we actually got our France Social Security numbers within 2 months after we did the application. So I consider that fast based on everything else here. And then 2 weeks after that, we got our carte vitales. But once you get your temporary Social Security number, you're in the system. So if you don't have that little carte vitale, which is in essence just your ID card proving that you're in the system, you still have that piece of paper, the attestation de droit,
Right.
that you show the doctor and pharmacy or whatever. So that only took 2 months. Now, the beginning of January, we applied to renew our visas. And we were told to make the application 3 to 4 months before the visa is going to expire. So our visa started on April 1st, but it expires at the end of March. So we made application first week of January. I had been waiting for a brand new passport. My passport had expired, and you can't make application to renew your visa unless your passport is going to last for the entire term of the next visa. So the next renewal would be for a 1-year visa. I had to have a passport that was going to at least be valid for that 1 year. So I couldn't renew sooner than the beginning of January because it took that long to get my replacement or my new visa back from the U.S. Embassy in Paris. So we made application, and now here we are in March. And just last week, we received emails, both of us, requesting actually our Social Security statement, benefit statement, which is basically the proof that we have sufficient income to stay here in France. I had totally forgotten to translate that or get it translated. So I had to quickly send that to our translator, get her to turn it around, and then send it back to Amelie. So, send it back to the government website where they're processing our applications for the visa renewal. And now we wait. But in addition, when they sent us the request for the translated copy of our U.S. Social Security statement, they also asked us for translated copies of our birth certificates. So I couldn't remember if I had sent them in initially, but I sent them another copy of both. They sent us another email with our pictures. It was like an 8.5 by 11 version of a visa, and it extended our visas until the beginning of June. Here in Nice, they happen to be way behind in processing visa applications. So we know that even at the end of the month, when technically our first visa would have expired, we now have an extension till the beginning of June, and hopefully we'll get our visa. But it does take a long time to get things done, and there isn't a whole lot you can do. I will say that when we applied for our health benefits through CPAM, I was able to call the Amelie. Amelie is the company that manages this. I was able to call the English helpline just to ask what the status was. And I did that maybe a few days, coincidentally, a few days before I received my attestation de droit, and I checked on both of ours. And they were very nice. I mean, there was no problem. In the US, they might have said, oh, Mrs. Scott, I can't tell you anything about your husband. He has to call in himself. But no, she looked up both files and she just said, okay, this one, yours is all set and approved, and I can email you a copy of your attestation de droit, so if you want to go to the pharmacy, you can take it with you. And then she said, and it looks like your husband's is in processing and will probably be mailed next week. So you can follow up, but there was no way to follow up by telephone on the exchange of our driver's license. And I haven't really needed to follow up on our visas since they did send us extensions. So that's probably been the most frustrating thing, that things just take long here. And the other thing, sort of a minor thing, but it's kind of the attitude that we're not accustomed to. We had a situation in the summertime where Jeff was coming home from someplace, and it was a Friday afternoon, and the outer gate leading to our building was locked. And we had a fob that you would just hit like a keypad, and it would release the lock on the door. Well, he couldn't get in. And he said, the fob, it's not working, the fob's not working, and he thought maybe it was just his. So fortunately, the restaurant next door was open, and their gate was open, and their patio sort of connects with our walkway to the building. So he walked through there and was able to get to the building and come upstairs. He then took my key, my fob wasn't working, and I knew that the restaurant downstairs was not open on weekends, and here it was a Friday afternoon. So Jeff went into the restaurant and explained to the owner, who's a good friend of ours, that the key fob's not working, and the owner gave him a numeric code. If that guy wasn't there then, his restaurant's not open on the weekend, we would have been without access to our building unless Jeff wanted to climb over the fence, because I wasn't going to climb over the fence. I mean, it's a really tall fence. So I called the phone number that I had been given for the management company that manages our building. And I called that woman. She was the one we had always dealt with when there was a problem. And I was kind of taken back by this. I'm telling her that Jeff is locked out, and now that the restaurant is closing, if we leave our apartment during the weekend, we're not going to have any way to get back into the apartment. So I expected she would consider this a bit of an urgency, and she said, I'm not working this afternoon. You'll have to send an email. And the other thing is, the office that you send the emails to, that office closes it around noon on Fridays.
So the offices do not stay late. They work the certain number of hours, and then when it's time to go home, whatever is left to be done will have to be done next week or the week after. That's their attitude.
So I sent an email and I said, this is urgent. We need to know, do you have a code? This is before we had the code for the gate. Do you have a code? Is there some way to get in? Is there something wrong with the gate? Did you know that the gate is broken? Do you know anything? Nothing, no response. We didn't get a response from the management office until Monday afternoon. Fortunately, we had the code so we could get in and out. On Monday afternoon, I guess the owner, probably the only person who speaks English well in the management office, sent an email, and he said, so everything okay? Did you ever get in? Kind of like, how would we figure out how to get in if that restaurant wasn't open? And I said, no, everything is not okay. We had no way to get in. I said, fortunately, the guy from the restaurant gave us his code. Had his restaurant been closed, we would either have been stuck on the outside or stuck in our apartment for the entire weekend. And we were very disappointed that nobody responded from the time I sent the alert or the email, which was really only about 12:30 on Friday afternoon. So they had all day Friday, the rest of the day, Saturday, Sunday, nothing. And
It's a Monday through Friday work week here. Saturdays are maybe some places, and Sunday everything is closed.
and
So
he acted like, what's the big deal?
yeah,
You got in, didn't you? And I was telling someone else that's a friend, and I said, has this ever happened to you? I mean, they've been here in France for years. And they said, look, the attitude here is, no one died, did they? I mean, I was taken back by that. In the US, if you have that kind of a problem, I mean, I've rented for years. If you have that kind of a problem, you're locked out. The landlord or the management company or management office, somebody comes and immediately assists you. They don't just leave you hanging and tell you they're not working the afternoon because their hours are over, or send an email and wait.
yeah.
So I wasn't accustomed to that. And in talking to some other people, that can be the case. The attitude
It's a more relaxed way of life.
yeah, nobody died,
We'll
did they?
get to it next week.
In your opinion, what would you say was the toughest part about moving to France?
The most difficult part of moving to France is you go to a city where you know no one else. And so some people feel very isolated here once they get here, that they don't have that network of friends or acquaintances where they used to be back in their United States. You used to have people you went to high school with, people you knew your whole life. Here in France, every time you go down the street, there's not a single other person that you recognize or know. Fortunately, we've had the ability to meet a number of people here who are also expats. So there is like a community of people who have come from the United States who we get together with from time to time and have lunch or go out with. But many people who come here by themselves say they have a hard time making friends here in France. So there are a couple of places, there are some expat gets together on Sunday morning or some other groups where you can get together. But that's one of the most important things, is to reestablish a group of friends or a group of people here, you know, a group of friends or acquaintances to make sort of people that you can go out with and enjoy and feel camaraderie with, and commiserate with the situation of leaving America and coming to France. Because there are some differences between living in the United States and living in France.
So Jeff, we've lived here for almost a year at the time we're shooting the video. Would you say that your life is better here in France than it would be if you stayed back in the United States?
I've got to say, after a year of living here, it's the life of living in Nice is much better than being back in the United States. They have the best health care I've ever run into. If I have to see a doctor or a dentist, I can stop in and get an appointment that day. So the healthcare system is much more affordable. I feel like the healthcare system here is set up to make you healthy. Different than the United States, where it's set up to make money for the doctors. So I really feel like France has a better healthcare system than the United States. As we left, we were on Medicare with a supplement. Here, I think the system is much better on a carte vitale. So I really think life is better here, and I feel like I'm healthier. I walk more, I get around. It's just been a lifestyle change. In the United States, you always would get in your car and drive places. Here in France, you'd walk down the street and you go to places. So it's a much tighter knit community, and it's a much better lifestyle.
People have asked, do you feel that there is a negative feeling about Americans in Nice right now? I mean, we haven't traveled to a lot of other places, so mostly people are asking us about Nice. But do you feel that when people think of Americans, they look negatively at us? So that's the question. Now, for me, I don't feel that at all. If anything, I think that people don't consider the people from America to necessarily represent the same views as the president back in the United States and what he's doing with his co-president. What about you? Have you?
What we've noticed is Macron has now become sort of director for NATO. And what we notice now is the European idea is they need to now build their own military and their own forces, because in the past, NATO has depended much on what the United States has dictated. And France and Macron now realize that NATO needs to step up and be its own director. They're not going to take so much direction anymore from the United States. So at this point, we actually feel like being in France has stepped up to a position where a stronger director for the NATO countries.
One thing that we have noticed is on the Promenade des Anglais, there were a couple of places where there was always an American flag flying. The American flags are gone. We noticed on the weekend that the American flags just either were taken down or they were never put up. I don't know whether they take the flags down at night. I don't think so. But clearly, there are no American flags that we have seen on the promenade, as there always were.
Yes.
Since we started coming to Nice.
So the current flags we now see is a NATO flag.
Right.
We see an Italian flag. We see a French flag. We see a Spanish flag.
Right.
But the one
Italy. Did you say
in Italy?
Italy.
But the one that appears to be missing is the American. There seems to be an empty flagpole or two. In that France and the countries of NATO have decided to start being in charge of their own destiny.
So another thing that has been concerning us living here, and I'm sure it's of concern to every single individual or couple that has come over here to retire in France, believing that they were going to live out the rest of their golden years on their U.S. Social Security. Now, with all of the games being played in Washington and the teenage ninjas going into buildings and pushing buttons and getting into computer systems and getting access to our personal information, and reductions in the number of Social Security offices in the United States, making it more and more difficult for people just in the United States alone to access Social Security for information, even to get on Social Security. Those of us that are already on Social Security, there's now this like dark cloud off in the distance. We have no idea what this means for us. Most of us that came over here came over to France on a VLS-TS long stay visitor visa, which allows us to retire here. It also stipulates that we cannot pursue employment here in France, which means that the only thing that we can count on to live on here in France is our United States Social Security and the modest savings that, in our case, that we brought with us. Some people are very fortunate. They had homes in the U.S. they sold before they came here, and they've got a big bank account full of money, or big investment accounts. Not us. We came here with a modest bank account and our Social Security, and we have found it extremely easy to live very comfortably on our U.S. Social Security benefit checks. But if those checks go away, we would have to dip into the savings that we've had. And we'd have to dip into the savings that we have. Our plan was to use that to travel, and we wanted it to last for the rest of our lives. And here we are. Jeff will be 71 next month, and I'm already 71.
So Jeff's only 70 actually right now.
We're counting optimistically on living another 30 years. So the money we have in the bank for the fun stuff theoretically has to last us for the end of our times, along with the Social Security.
Right.
If the powers to be in Washington, D.C., if Congress allows the president and his co-president to just push buttons and get rid of Social Security, or the benefits suddenly stop, we and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of seniors all over the world will suddenly be in a panic, because this is what we live on. So at the moment, it's not a major concern, but I have to tell you, this month, on the 3rd of the month, first thing I did was I woke up and I went to our bank account to make sure that we had Social Security benefits deposited into our bank account. And next month we'll do the same. And it's something that now we've been living here stress-free, not a care in the world, not a worry. Now we have to worry about what's going on in Washington, D.C. that will take that will impact our Social Security that we spend our entire adult lives working for, contributing to, just to have somebody who has no clue what he's doing send his teenagers in there, or himself, push buttons, and suddenly the entire fund goes away for a period of time or forever. So this is something that we do worry about, and at least now we're starting to think about trips we've had planned and things we want to do, and sort of back up just in case we need to start dipping into our savings account to be able to take care of our rent and expenses living here.
Yep.
So the best thing that would happen is, if it does happen, Macron changes the law and allows those of us who are here on these long stay visas, allows us to be able to pursue employment here, so that it can supplement what we have, or even make up for the Social Security that we will no longer have. But we've got our fingers crossed that Congress will wake up and not let that happen, as I'm sure all of you who are watching this, who are from the United States or here in France with us, I'm sure everybody, this is something on all of our minds right now.
Yes.
So, we'd be lying if we said it isn't a serious concern.
One of the good things about being in France is, as we go out and walk around Nice, we feel very safe and very secure here. We did have a friend have his wallet pickpocketed one time on one of the trams. So
the friend that came with our son Ryan last month got on a tram right from the train station. We weren't on the tram 5 minutes.
Yep. So you do have to, in most situations, keep an eye on your wallet. But as the rest of the crime, we've been very low crime rate, and we feel very safe going out at night to any part of the city. And basically, we're walking to where we're going and walking back home at the end of the night. So living in France is much more relaxing, and we feel much safer than we did living in the United States, to be honest.
Well, absolutely. I mean, our next door neighbor back in Florida used to fly all kinds of MAGA related flags. We don't have any of that. We don't even have to worry about any of that here.
And coming from Florida, which was an open carry state, meant anybody at any corner of a stop sign could potentially pull out a gun and shoot you from the car next door.
Right.
That doesn't occur here in France. They're much better about gun control, and people don't openly carry weapons as they're walking around in Nice. It just feels much safer. And anytime we go to a public event, security is at a pretty high level. I mean, they'll have actually army people. They'll have security people doing metal checks and stuff. They'll look through your bag to make sure that everybody is coming in safe and doesn't hide any weapons and anything. So we feel much more comfortable here in Nice as a city than parts of Florida made us feel.
Ironically, when I first started coming to France, I can remember the first time being in the Charles de Gaulle airport in Paris and seeing the soldiers come through carrying machine guns. And it was rather off-putting the first time I saw that. I had never seen that before in my entire life. And it was like, oh my gosh. Now, every day, you see the French National Police or the local police, or you see the military just patrolling, and they have machine guns. It doesn't scare me. I'm numb to it now. I actually feel safer with them, with the guns in their hands, than I did in the US, where you had no idea who had guns. And I mean, Jeff was always one for, if somebody cut him off when he was driving, he would be yelling nasty things out the window to them. And once Florida became an open carry state, I had to keep yelling at him, Jeff, don't yell out the window. Don't yell out the window. You have no idea what they're carrying in their car. I mean, our neighbor used to have friends with pickup trucks that would pull into a vacant lot next to ours, and you would see big shotguns hanging in the back window of those trucks. Here, I actually feel safer because there is such a presence of police and military
And
patrolling busy areas like the pedestrian streets with all the restaurants. It is not uncommon to see soldiers up and down the street every now and then.
And anytime there's a big event like Carnival
Right.
or St. Patrick's Day, there is extra security out on the
Right.
streets, double checking and verifying that everybody's safe and there for a good time.
Yeah. So while, those of you who live in the United States and have never observed this are thinking, oh my gosh, guns, machine guns out on the street. Yeah, the very first time you see it, it is off-putting. But if you came from Florida where we did, where you have no idea what's going on, and there are school shootings and mass shootings, here in France, that just doesn't happen. And it may very well be because there is such a presence of law enforcement. You can't even own your own firearms here unless you keep it someplace outside of your home. We had firearms for our own personal safety and protection in Florida. We sold those before we came to France. We didn't feel that we were going to need them. And I have never felt, since I've been living here for almost a year now,
Yep.
never felt like, oh, I wish we had a gun. I feel very safe here, as Jeff has said.
Yeah.
We have no regrets, not one regret about moving here. We hope that we will continue to have Social Security
Yes.
checks
Yes.
so that we can stay here for the rest of our lives.
Yep.
And if you're thinking about coming to France, do the research. If you need to, watch some of our videos from the past
And
that teach you how to apply for things and make the applications and do the exchanges. And I mean, hopefully we've been very helpful to many people who have already made the trip.
And make the leap of faith. Come to France.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for watching. We really do love all of you and appreciate those of you who have taken the time to send us notes, to stop us on the street, to email us and tell us a little bit about yourselves and suggest we get together for lunch or dinner or apéro. We have loved meeting all of you. You know, our first group of friends here in Nice, they all started as subscribers like you.
Yep.
And they came to France, they emailed us, we got together, we all decided we liked each other, and now we continue to socialize with them. Now we don't look at them as, oh, they're subscribers. No, they're our good friends. We treasure our new friendships, and we have more friends now than I think we did ever since we got together back in the US. And it all happened so fast. So having friends here, making new friends here is very important.
Yes.
So thank you very, very much for watching, for making our YouTube channel a popular channel to watch. Be sure to tell your friends if they're thinking about coming to France. Tell them about us. If they're armchair travelers, tell them about us. And we hope that we'll see you all here in Nice, France. Bye for now.